already consistent with the direction we would like them to move. Once we've sought out and uncovered those existing commitments, we can raise them to the surface by arranging for individuals to take active public stands on what they truly value. Then, if we can honestly point out how our product, our service, or our idea is consistent with their personal and now clearly visible commitments, the consistency principle will take over and move them to us. And not only will we benefit, but so will they, because they will be moving in a direction that is in keeping with what they genuinely want and prefer. The best thing about taking the detective's approach is that we don't have to worry about the guy bailing out on the commitments. They're his. They come from the inside. He took personal possession of them a long time ago. That's why showing him how what we have to offer is congruent with his commitments can be such a powerful instrument for immediate and persisting change in our direction. By accident, I saw just how effectively existing commitments can be used to produce beneficial change. I had been asked by the administration of a local hospital to help motivate stroke patients to do their exercise program faithfully after they left the hospital. If you remember our earlier discussion, one of the things we did was to use the credibility principle by having the therapy staff put up all their diplomas, certificates, and awards. But another thing we tried to use was the consensus principle, the influence that comes from observing the actions of similar others. After talking to a number of the patients, we found that they all believed in the wisdom of doing their exercises. It was just that when they got home, it was difficult to motivate themselves to do them. So, we decided that we would ask some of these former patients to appear on videotape stating their true beliefs that regular home exercise was important and valuable for recovery. We also asked hospital staff members, nurses, therapists, and a couple of doctors to make a similar set of tapes. Then, when new stroke patients were about to leave the hospital to go home, we showed them either the staff tapes or the patient tapes, figuring that the most effective information for the new patients would be that which came from an array of similar others. And we were right. When we measured the improvements of the various patients, we found that those who saw the tapes made by former stroke patients were more likely to have stayed with their exercise program after they went home than were the patients who saw the tapes made by the staff members. But here's what surprised us. You know which patients showed the greatest improvements? Those who made the tapes for us. Why? Because by making a tape for us, they had also made an active, public, voluntary commitment to regular home exercise. And by George, they were going to live up to it. Can you see why I said earlier that I was so high on the idea of gathering and using as many testimonials as possible to your product or idea in the business world? A genuine testimonial in your behalf has double-barreled impact. Not only will it strengthen your case with similar influence targets, it will strengthen your case even further with the person who made the testimonial, who will have taken an active, public, voluntary stand on the quality of what you have to offer, and who, as a result, will be more likely than before to want to stay in your corner. Finding and publicizing genuine testimonials. If there's a simpler and more powerful technique of instant influence, I can't think of it.
Who's that on the phone, hon?
Oh, just Janice.
Well, what you want?
She's throwing a Tupperware party at her house next Friday night, and she wants me to come.
You didn't accept, did you?
Well, yes, I did.
Wait a minute. Didn't we decide that we wanted to save Friday nights for going to the movies?
Yes, we did, but I
And
just...
didn't you tell me that you didn't like going to Tupperware parties anymore because you got all the containers you need that will, when you press on them? And even if you didn't, you could get them cheaper at the store?
Yes, but I just thought
And
that...
didn't Janice just move all the way across town so that it'd take you 40 minutes to get there and back?
Yes, but what could I do? I like Janice. She's a friend.
I'm sure it will come as no surprise to you to learn that scientific research has demonstrated over and over that people are substantially more willing to say yes to someone they know and like. The little vignette we just heard shows how this universal principle of human behavior works in one of the most effective compliance settings I know, the Tupperware home party. The power of the Tupperware party comes from a particular arrangement that trades on the friendship-liking rule. Despite the entertaining and persuasive salesmanship of the Tupperware representative at the party, the true request to purchase the product does not come from this stranger. It comes from a friend to everyone in the room. The Tupperware representative may physically ask for each party-goer's order, all right, but the more psychologically compelling requester is a woman sitting off to the side, smiling, chatting, and serving refreshments. She is the party hostess, who has called her friends together for the demonstration in her home, and who everyone understands makes a profit from each piece sold at her party. Simple. By providing the hostess with a percentage of the take, the Tupperware company arranges for their customers to buy from and for a friend rather than an unknown salesperson. In this way, the attraction, the warmth, the security, and the obligation of liking and friendship are brought to bear on the sales setting. The results have been remarkable. Of course, all sorts of other influence professionals recognize the pressure to say yes to someone we know and like. Take, for instance, the large number of charity organizations who recruit volunteers to canvass for donations close to their homes. They understand perfectly how much more difficult it is for us to turn down a charity request when it comes from a friend or neighbor. Most of us, however, have to try to engage the principle of liking in a different way. Before making a request, we have to get our influence target to like us. Notice, once again, that the crucial step is what happens before the request is made. Just as establishing an initial context of credibility, or scarcity, or consensus, or commitment changes the way people respond to a request, establishing a context of liking has the very same effect. I was once approached for advice by a friend who was anxious about an upcoming IRS audit. Even though he hadn't done anything wrong in filling out his tax return, he was worried because he hadn't kept the best of records to document his expenses and deductions. Now, I knew him to be an honest guy. With several likable qualities, he was a very fair and generous person. The problem was that the IRS auditor he would be meeting didn't know that. So, we formulated a plan to make those traits visible at the start of his audit session. I remembered that he had once told me that every year since his divorce, he had been voluntarily adding an amount of money to his monthly child support payments to his kids because, as he put it, inflation hits them too. Figuring that this kind of evidence of his inherent integrity and fair-mindedness would be an invaluable point to make in the early stages of the audit, I advised him to start the session by documenting that he was indeed entitled to the deductions he was claiming for his kids. Once in the process, it would naturally come out that he had been sending them more money than he was required by the divorce decree. That would establish the liking context that would serve him well when he got to the more difficult areas of the audit. He called me following his session, nearly giddy with the news that the plan had worked like a charm. He said that the initial coolness of the auditor, who turned out to be a woman, melted immediately after she compared the amount specified on his decree with the amount of his child support checks. From that point on, she breezed through the rest of his records, giving him the benefit of the doubt whenever things got sticky. Once more, we can see that it's what you do first that critically affects how people respond to what you present to them later. Some of the best evidence I know for the importance of establishing liking first comes from the story of a man in Detroit, Joe Girard, who specialized in using the liking rule to sell Chevrolets. Every year, for 11 straight years, he won the title of the country's #1 car salesman, averaging over 5 cars and trucks sold every day he worked. For all his success, the formula he employed was surprisingly simple. It consisted of offering people just 2 things: a fair price and someone they liked to buy the car from. And that's it, he claimed in a radio interview I once heard. Finding the salesman you like, plus the price, put them both together, and you get a deal. Well, fine. The Joe Girard formula tells us how vital the liking rule is to the influence process, but it doesn't tell us nearly enough. For one thing, it doesn't tell us why customers liked him more than some other salesperson who offered a fair price. There's a crucial and fascinating question that Joe's formula leaves unanswered. Just what are the factors that cause one person to like another person? If we had that answer, we would be a lot closer to understanding how people such as Joe can so successfully arrange to have us like them, and as well, how we might successfully arrange to have others like us. Fortunately, social scientists have been asking the question for decades, and their studies have allowed them to identify a number of factors that forcefully and reliably cause liking. From my perspective, 3 of these factors are most important for an agent of influence to know about. The 3 factors are similarity, praise, and cooperation. Let's examine how they work one at a time, beginning with similarity. We like people who are like us, and this fact seems to hold true whether the similarity occurs in the area of opinions, personality traits, background, or lifestyle. We can see the proof all around us. On the athletic field, people root for players who share some characteristic with them, like place of birth. In the courtroom, defendants are given more sympathetic treatment from jurors of the same racial or ethnic background. And in the romantic arena, individuals are more likely to feel affection for partners who hold similar attitudes and beliefs. Well, if similarity leads to liking and influence in these areas, you can bet the same holds true in the business world. Insurance company records show that prospects are more likely to buy insurance when the salesperson is like them in age, religion, politics, and even cigarette smoking habits. Many sales training programs teach trainees to connect with the backgrounds and interests of their customers. Automobile salespeople, for example, are often trained to look for evidence of these things while examining a customer's trade-in. If there's camping gear in the trunk, the salesman might be schooled in how to remark later on that he loves to get away from the city and into the wilderness whenever he can. If there are golf balls on the back seat, he might be taught to mention that he hopes the rain will hold off until he can play the round of golf he had scheduled for later in the day. Personally, I don't have any problems with the use of these kinds of similarities as long as they are genuine. I can't see anything wrong with mentioning similarities that are already there as existing features of the situation and that have merely been uncovered by good detective work. The difficulty comes when the similarities are phony ones that have been smuggled into the situation to exploit their psychological impact on the liking process. So, as usual, the question for the agent of influence becomes, how can I arrange my environment to be able to take advantage of this leverage in the way that a sleuth of influence would? Here's what I'd recommend. Remember earlier in our discussion of authority, I suggested that before attempting to do business with anyone you hope to influence, that you spend some time in informal conversation, a period of time in which information can be exchanged about one another's backgrounds, interests, educational affiliations, and professional associations. At the time, I said that this kind of conversation would allow you to present in a non-boastful way evidence of your credentials and expertise that are relevant to the upcoming business discussions. What I didn't say at the time is that I think it also provides the chance to get valuable evidence as well. Evidence of the other person's personal history, hobbies, and favorite activities. Think of the liking bond that could be forged between you when you discover that you both lived in the same city for a time, or went to the same university, or belonged to the same national fraternity, or run 3 miles a day in the mornings, or loved to watch professional basketball or amateur gymnastics, or old Cary Grant movies on TV. This liking bond can be achieved with a prospective client or a recently hired coworker or even a new boss. The important thing to remember is that the opportunity to establish the context of mutual liking when it will be most beneficial at the beginning of things is too rare to be missed. Okay, now let's talk about the second major factor that affects liking: praise. Not only is it true that we like those who are like us, we also like those who do like us and who say so. Remember Joe Girard, the world's greatest car salesman, who says that the secret of his success was getting customers to like him? He did something that, on first blush, seems foolish and costly. Each month, he sent every one of his more than 13,000 former customers a holiday greeting card containing a printed message. The holiday greeting changed from month to month: Happy New Year, Happy Valentine's Day, Happy Thanksgiving, and so on. But the message printed inside the card never varied. It read, "I like you." There was nothing else on the card, nothing but Joe's name under the statement. "I like you." It came in the mail every year, 12 times a year like clockwork. "I like you," on a printed card that went to 13,000 other people too. Could a statement of liking so impersonal, so obviously designed to sell cars work? Joe Girard thought so, and a man as successful as he was at what he did deserves our attention. Joe understood an important fact about human nature. People are phenomenal suckers for flattery. As a rule, people believe praise and like those who provide it even when it's untrue. For example, in one study done in North Carolina, a flatterer who gave out compliments was liked just as much when the compliments were untrue as when they were true. When seen in this light, the expense of printing and mailing well over 150,000 "I like you" cards each year seems neither as foolish nor as costly as we might have first thought. Now, because praise can be either sincere or insincere and still work, we find ourselves once again with a smuggler versus sleuth choice to make. Unfortunately, many agents of influence are taught the smuggler's approach in this regard. For instance, while doing research for my book on influence, I infiltrated a sales training program for insurance agents where we were told, when we visited a client's home, to comment positively on anything that was prominent. Compliment the lawn, compliment the furniture. If a child walks by, compliment the kid. Well, I suppose that kind of approach will work to a degree, but in the process, it will carry two sizable disadvantages. First, it will carry into the job the distasteful aspect of dishonesty. And we've already discussed the harmful effects that can have on a person's self-esteem and enthusiasm for the job. The second disadvantage is one we haven't considered yet. Although manufacturing a false compliment may make the recipient like you more, it will make you bungle away an even more powerful tool of influence: the chance to like the person you are complimenting. Look at it this way. If you take the time and effort to find just one truly praiseworthy thing to say about the person you want to influence, you will be liked more for it. But in addition, you'll gain the added benefit of liking that individual more. And once the people you're dealing with recognize that you like them, something special happens. Down go the defenses. Down go their cautions about whether they can trust what you say. Why? Because everybody knows that we don't take advantage of the people we like. The same logic applies to real versus fabricated similarities. What you have to remember is that you are susceptible to the same psychological principles as the individuals you're trying to influence. So you're going to like the people in whom you've taken the trouble to locate genuine similarities, because people like people who are actually